Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz, a podcast that provides both education and inspiration for those of us in or interested in the weddings and event industry. If you missed the last episode, it was on November 4th, and that was with the esteemed designer planner Brian Raffinelli. Yet another truly amazing interview with him. And today's guest is Brooke Keegan, owner and creative director of Brooke Keegan Special Events. Brooke founded her company in 2009, which specializes in custom multi-day destination weddings and events, full-service planning, production and design, event management, and concierge-level services. She was recognized by Harper's Bazaar and Brides Magazine as one of the world's top event planners. And be sure to check out my first interview of Brooke in episode number 483. Enjoy this new conversation with Brooke Keegan. Hey, Brooke, it is so good to have you back again. That last conversation we had was incredible, so I'm really excited to talk to you again.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, well, last time we spoke, it was November of 2023, so it was right around a year ago, and we talked about how generally, for much of the industry, business was looking to be down in 2024, and you were bringing up an interesting point. One was that it's kind of typical for an election year. And I think it was you, Brooke. I wasn't sure if it was someone else, but I think it was you who also said not only is it an election year, but because engagements were down like around 65%, I don't know what study that was, but some study said engagements were down approximately 65% because of COVID, like the decrease in dating from back then, those 2 years or so, led to, people would then date for a while, they'd be engaged. So it led to a decrease in engagements, which kind of hit in 2024. So I'm curious, now that we're at the end of the year, how has it gone for you?
Yeah, it's exactly what I had said a year ago. It's been very, very slow for us this year. We haven't had any weddings in the calendar year of 24. We've had some social and some corporate events. But for weddings, we haven't seen anything. And, I've talked to so many of my friends in the industry. I think I'm the only one that hasn't had any weddings specifically, but they've all said that their calendar was a lot lighter than they anticipated as well. Typically, down maybe at least 30 to 40% of what they're used to seeing. So I think across the board, like I said, election year, and engagements being down 60 to 65%, exactly what I had said. You were correct, Andy. Based on a study, I think that's what's affected this year. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Well, and I want to point out that when you're talking about your friends, these are also other high-powered, experienced, seasoned planners and designers. So
Absolutely.
Because I think people tend to think that, at a certain level, you've arrived, you have it made, everything is easy, which is
right.
Which is, certainly, it's like one thing getting to that level, but then staying at that level is a whole nother story.
What I was talking about with a couple other friends too, which was interesting. And this is not based on any statistics. This is just us being in the industry for so long and talking to so many of our friends at ultra luxury level, is that, the weddings that were under, I would say, 650,000 or so, 500 to 650,000 or so were still happening. The weddings over 2 million were still happening. It was kind of this weird cushion of 750,000 to, $1.5 million to $2 million weddings that kind of almost disappeared a little bit. Once again, not based on stats, but just looking across our industry at our friends, the weddings that we were typically getting inquiries for in that price point, really kind of went away. So it was so interesting. It was the people that, weren't spending as much. Granted, 500,000 is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a party, but the people in the lower, investment level, I guess you would say, or the ones in the extreme high level, were happening. And you could kind of see that throughout this year. Look at how many extravagant, crazy weddings happened this year. Multi-millions. 20, 30, 40, $50 million weddings that we're seeing pop up over the last several months. Anyways, that's just an observation that some of my friends and I had. That was pretty interesting.
Well, what is it looking like now for 2025?
Yeah. So 25, we have 3 weddings on the books already. which is great. Getting a lot of amazing qualified leads right now. I am in a networking group called Frida. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Anya has started a networking group called Frida. And, across the board, everyone was really excited, hoping that there was going to be an amazing engagement boom in 24, which there has been. And 25 was going to be great. I've seen an uptick for sure. Across the industry, though, people are saying, it's not as robust as we had hoped. But once again, here we are, end of September. I think once the election is over, I think that hopefully Q1 will all start getting floods of inquiries of people that, now everything, the election's over. We're looking forward to the future. So, hopefully an influx of inquiries will come in Q1.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you now about your process with bridal couples. Like, I'm wondering if you have a certain protocol for how you work with them. Is there like a step-by-step process starting with how you meet them in the beginning and through the planning and design process? Do you have kind of, not a formula, but a typical way of doing that?
I mean, you always have this, outline of what you'd like to stick to, but each client is so unique. I mean, sometimes people are coming to us, they got engaged yesterday and they have no clue what they haven't even thought about how many guests or what location around the world or, any of those things. So that process is very different than, say, getting a referral from Blackberry Farm and someone already knows that they want to get married there and what the date availability is and how many guests are maxed at the venue and those kinds of things. So the process is very different for us. But I would say in general, it's meeting with the clients. I mean, 99% of our meetings are on Zoom because our clients don't live, in Southern California where I'm based.
Yeah.
So typically our clients are, from all over the world. I mean, 2 weddings we had last year, our clients were living abroad, in Europe. So it just depends. But typically the first, we get the inquiry, however that may be. We do a small vetting process prior to getting on the phone just to make sure they would be a good fit, having to do with time of year, dates, location, investment level, those kinds of things. Once we get them on the Zoom, we really just kind of tailor the conversation to where they're at in the process. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. A lot of times we are in the very beginning stages. And so a lot of it is an exploratory call about what they're actually looking for, which kind of gets away from what we actually do and what we can provide, because they're just very excited and want to talk about doing a wedding in Lake Como or in the mountains of Jackson Hole. So, sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge being at the very, very beginning of the conversation as far as selling our services. But kind of once we have that discovery call with the client, hopefully we get to have another call. If we end up, moving forward with them, which is amazing. We onboard them. We then do, our venue selection, our venue search, do a lot of visits if we need to different locations so that they can select their venue. And then once their venue is selected, what our team likes to do, which, some planners do and some don't, is that we like to kind of start and deliver within 4 to 6 weeks an overall comprehensive budget. A lot of planners don't do that because how do we know what we're spending on decor? Design is really what drives the investment level. But for us, we can get a pretty good feeling on the venue, what the client's needs and expectations are, seeing visuals of what they like, talking to them, having these conversations. We try to put together an overall investment and a budget for them within 4 to 6 weeks so that they, money is the hardest part of the whole wedding process. So we like to kind of get everyone in agreement kind of there on what that's going to look like. Now, there's a caveat with that. Of course, we deliver it saying this is based on all conversations we've had so far. Now, you decide to bring in a professional entertainer, you add fireworks, we end up tenting and we weren't going to at first. I mean, all of those things can factor in changing that investment level. And then once kind of that is approved, then we all move forward and we start curating the perfect creative partner team, and, just kind of walk them through the entire planning process up until, of course, the event weekend and execution there. So that's a very broad view, but I hope that kind of helps answer a little bit of our process.
That's great. I'm curious, you just mentioned curating a team, of creative partners. So you're not necessarily, are you using a lot of the same people from event to event, or like, how do you treat doing that? Like, to me, I'll just say for me, I'm in the music business. So when I put together a new band, or have to replace someone, I feel like I'm a chef, and it's a recipe, and there's there's ingredients, and certain ingredients go better with other ingredients in that recipe than others, and I think that's, at least for me, that's one of my skills or gifts or whatever you want to call it, is being able to figure that out and to know that, hey, this singer is going to be amazing with this other singer, and then, so like, is that what you're doing with the creative team? How are you deciding how to put them together for each event?
Yeah. So Andy, we have three criteria for putting together our creative partner team. One of it is investment level, of course. And then stylistic, and personality. A lot of it is, think of photo and video teams. I mean, they're with the client the longest of anyone, and they're in the client's faces all day. Does the client feel more comfortable with a female or a male, or someone that's really outgoing? Do they want someone that's not going to say anything all day and just kind of just be in the background and just capture the moments? So there's a lot of different factors that go into that. Of course, investment level, I'm not going to refer a $150,000 photographer if our photography budget's $50,000 or whatever that is,
Yeah.
And then also stylistically, a lot of clients come to us and they all have different styles. I mean, of course, each planner has their kind of signature style, if you want to call it that. But for the most part, each client comes to us and say, I'm really loving this, or I'm really, with social media out there now, everyone's seeing everything. Most of our clients are getting married within a year or two of a lot of their friends as well. So they've seen different things. They've been to different events. They come to us with opinions for sure on things. So, those are kind of the three criteria we, go by to create this creative partner team, knowing who would be the best, for the client based on those things. So yes, it's like a chef in the kitchen, and it's trying to create the perfect team. Also, just cohesion on the event weekend, knowing that these creative partners work really well together, and everyone's in it for the clients, and to have such a successful event and everyone's working together as a team. And there's not one creative partner that's, above anyone else. So we're all equals, and it's all about teamwork. And that's a huge, huge thing for us as well.
Yeah, sounds great. I understand. I want to make sure that you're aware of two other shows that are on the Wedding Biz Network. First are 2 seasons of Stop and Smell the Roses, hosted by well-known event designer Preston Bailey. Preston speaks with such an honest and sincere voice. This is the only platform in which you can hear this legend of the industry share secrets to his success. Also, check out the 140 episodes of The Business of Being Creative, hosted by Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm, The Business of Being Creative, is full of topics and advice for any creative business with a focus on the event and interior design industry. You can find both shows at thewedడింgbizNetwork.com or on your cell phone's podcast app for both Stop and Smell the Roses and The Business of Being Creative. There's obviously a business side of what you do. In order to have the level of success that you've had, you needed to create a business structure. You've got to hire, manage people. You've got to handle the sales, whether it's you or someone who works for you, and the finances, and I've always thought that we're all very creative, right? Those of us who are in this business, right? The wedding and event business, and the business side is really a different part of the brain. How do you look at the balance between the creative side, being creative, and then having to create business structure? And it has to really be tight to run these kinds of parties you run.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that once, you realize that this is a business and this is a real business, some studies just came out recently that have been circulating throughout the industry, that we're a $65 billion business nationally. I mean, just weddings alone, which is incredible. You have to treat it like a business, and the people you're working with are very, very successful people. I mean, if people are spending these types of investments on a 6-hour party, or a 3-day weekend, they're business people too. So you have to understand, the ins and outs of what that looks like and what these investments look like to these clients. So being completely transparent and honest and detailed. I mean, our budgets are, eight tabs long. I mean, it's like a line item by line item. Every single little thing is included because that's what our clients want to see. Sometimes we have the random client that never looks at a budget and just trusts us, which is amazing. But for the most part, people that have this type of financial, commitment to this weekend definitely want to see what that looks like. So for us, it's really, really important, especially on the accounting side, to be there. Also, just to be extremely professional with how we represent ourselves on social media, how we talk to our clients over Zoom, over text, over email. We have protocol in place of what and how we communicate with our clients. And, it's super important to keep that and remain that professional level. Not saying it's not great to have fun with your clients because this is a really fun experience for them, but there has to be a level of professionalism as well. And I think that's really important. So, as fun as this industry is and everyone loves it and it's throwing a party and it's the best day of people's lives, we also have to remember that we need to be successful because we are working so hard and we need to be compensated for that and we need to be respected in that regard. But also we have a level of responsibility of a client saying, here's $1 million of mine. I trust you to do something great with it. So it is pressure and it is stressful, but you have to really strip back and strip away the fun and really look at it as a true business, even though it's hard to do that sometimes.
But how did you figure out how to do this? Like, did you basically just learn on your own, making mistakes piece at a time? Did you have mentors? Did you take some kind of class? I mean, how did you figure all this out?
Sure. It's trial and error. I mean, we're turning 16 in January. So it's been, and then I've been in the industry, for 6 years before that. So it's just been observing other people, trial and error, talking to a lot of people in the industry, mentors. I've spoke on this before a couple of times. I've created an advisory board for myself. The people on the advisory board don't really know they're on my advisory board necessarily.
I like how you're saying this. Yeah.
But I like to, and every year the advisory board changes. Sometimes there's consistent people. I have a group of people that I get together with monthly that we talk business. I also have an accountability partner that I meet with every 3 to 4 weeks. And we hold each other accountable to different business things, saying kind of what we want to accomplish then. But this advisory board that I have put together, it's people within the wedding industry and it's people outside the wedding industry, Andy, because business is business. Finance is finance. And if you're managing people, it's managing people. So, yes, it's a specific niche that we're in and it's a particular thing that I think 99.9% of people don't understand our industry, which is okay. But the business side of it, they do understand. And so for me, it's, my best friend's husband that does crazy corporate events and incentive travel for major car dealerships. Like, he is an amazing source of business advice for me, and then I do have my planner friends and my photographer friends that are within the industry. And, I have friends in the travel industry that I get a ton of business advice from. And my uncle who owned, a very successful restaurant bar for 34 years. Like, I just tap into a bunch of different people and I'm not afraid to ask the questions. And I think that's the hardest part. There's no dumb question. I mean, if you don't know the answer, you need to figure it out, whether it's online or asking a friend that's gone through it. Just trying to find people. My favorite quote is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And
that's great.
So for me, it's like, who can I surround myself with that are smarter than me, that I can learn from, that are going to encourage me and challenge me. And when you actually start talking about things to people and start saying things and saying what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, you're like, oh gosh, I told these people this. I got to actually do it now. So there's a lot of power in saying things out loud in any regard of your life, I think, personally and professionally. So that's kind of how I learned, Andy, is just from other people. Yes, going to conferences. Yes, listening to a million podcasts, reading books, all of those traditional ways. But I think what's helped me the most is just really talking to people and learning from people with experience.
Yeah. And I love what you were saying earlier about a sort of informal advisory board that you've got. I think that's great. And the monthly, check-ins with people, also, so, we were talking about the business, and then earlier balancing the creative with the business. What about balancing your personal life with this business? Now, I know that this is a slower year, so let's just say in a typical year,
sure.
What is that like for you? Like, do you block out time for yourself? Is it hard to make time for yourself? How do you unwind? I know for me, that is a critical part of this. I remember I used to write songs. I was also a songwriter. And I remember I was studying with major hit songwriters. And I remember one of them was talking about how the downtime, in his opinion, and he wrote major hits. He said that his downtime was just as important because he was like refueling the tank, and he really had to not feel guilty, for taking time off, but rather it was productive time, actually. How do you view that? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people in this industry that say there's no such thing as work-life balance. And I think that's wrong. And I think that there is, you just have to create it and you have to make it a priority, just as you would make anything else a priority. You are only better when you're personally the best for your business and for your clients, exactly what you're saying. So for me, I know that some of my, employees, what's important to them is, going on a walk in the afternoon and cooking dinner. And that's so important to them. So we start a little earlier in the day, or, they like to do, spend time with their family, every Sunday night. And so, we try really hard if we can to get home early on Sundays, on event weekends, whatever that is, I think is super, super important for myself and for my team. But I would say you have to be selfish and you can't apologize for being healthy and taking care of yourself mentally and physically. So, I've just learned that I like to go for walks at the beach in the morning, every single morning. And so for me, my day typically with meetings starts at 10, because I like to go do that. Now, does it happen every day? Does it happen in really crazy times? No, but that's what I like to do. And that's my time to, listen to my podcasts and to get my exercise in the morning and to do those things. And so I do carve out me time as if it's an appointment. And that's how I felt like it's been successful for me, going to the saunas or going on my walks or, seeing my friends for happy hour or dinners. I really do focus on that. Of course, I don't lose sight of, how busy we are. And in those times, of course, we are busy and working extra and working overtime. But it is really, really important to carve out that time for yourself. It's honestly made me love my job more once I've focused on me. It's made it so much more fun and enjoyable because I'm so much happier as a person, and so I can bring that joy into my clients, into my work. And, but I think you can't feel bad for scheduling you time. I mean, I don't have children, so I can only imagine the people in our industry that have kids that are also juggling their own personal, mental, and physical health on top of, a spouse and children, which is absolutely crazy. But it's not selfish to take care of yourself. And I think that's why you see a lot of these people get up at 4:30 in the morning so they can go to the gym. And it's like, you're crazy. And it's like, yeah, but that's my me time. And that's important. So fortunately, I don't have kids that I have to wake up so early for, but I just think it's really important, Andy, to make it a priority and schedule it as appointments. Because if you don't schedule it as an appointment, you can very easily dismiss that. And sometimes that appointment has to be canceled because of a client, and that's fine.
Right. There's exceptions.
But if you're getting it 80 to 85% of the time, you're winning. That's what I do.
So last question, you might be too young for this and maybe it's too premature to ask this question, but I'm curious, do you think about an exit strategy? Do you have any kind of thoughts about that? Or are you just totally, you're so in it right now, it's not even on your mind?
Every day, Andy, every day. I mean, in the regards of, I'm 44 now. And, I don't know that I could be doing this as long as some of the amazing people in our industry are still doing this. I absolutely love it. And I want to do it. But yes, I do. I have, I'm building towards exit strategies as far as investments go. And, my biggest thing is make money while you sleep. So how are you going to do that? I want to be able to get to a point where, I have investment properties, I have investments in other businesses. creating other businesses, that isn't as physically and mentally taxing as this one. Yes, I do constantly think about it and challenge myself to think outside of the industry. And I really love that our industry is actually diving into this more. A lot of times, majority of our industry is working paycheck to paycheck, which is devastating. But, I feel like there's so much more talk and buzz around, starting to invest and retirement funds and, maybe some real estate, maybe some other types of, investments that people are looking into. And so I'm so glad that our industry is actually starting to talk about that, because it is important, and it is important to have an exit plan. There is no, in our industry, unless there's a couple different bigger businesses like rental houses and, production companies, but like a lot of people don't have 401ks that they're building on, or all of those things. Like, you have to create those yourself. So, I've set up a simple IRA program within our business. Of course, I have different retirement, plans as well, different investments, things like that. So yes, I think it's important to do that. And, my biggest piece of advice to people is just to start, even if it's putting away $50 a month, if that's all you can do right now, to start figuring out some sort of retirement plan or exit strategy. And then when you're doing better, maybe it's $100 a month, whatever that is. I think it's super important to start thinking about that. Even if you're in your early 20s, you want to start building that up. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I was just thinking that while you're saying it. I have a daughter who I've talked to at great length about this, telling her, because I started late with investments, relatively speaking, and I was telling her that, exactly what you just said. $50, $100, an automatic withdrawal from your bank account into a retirement account. It's automatic. You don't even look at it. And like you said, as you can afford more, you bump it up to $150, to $250, to $500, to $1,000.
Yep.
And eventually you look back and it's really added up. So I think that everything you talked about is really relevant and helpful. But that in particular really grabbed my attention. So, well, Brooke, this has been, wow, in this brief amount of time, an incredible amount of information, just like last time with you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and just thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Brooke Keegan. Be sure to check out her website, which is brookekeegan.com, and you can find her on social media at Brooke Keegan. She also has another website, and that's brookekeeganblueprint.com. And the Instagram associated with that is Brooke Keegan Blueprint. And finally, if you could share this with 3 good friends who you feel would benefit from it, and also please review it, because it helps new people find us. And finally, you can follow us on Instagram at The Wedding Biz, and we'll catch you next time.